The Bible says,
Jesus went out with his disciples over the brook Kidron, where there was a garden, into which he and his disciples entered a place which was named Gethsemane. He said to his disciples,
"Sit here, while I pray."
He took with him Peter, James, and John, and began to be greatly troubled and distressed. He said to them,
"My soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even to death. Stay here and watch."
He went forward a little, and fell on the ground, and prayed that, if it were possible, the hour might pass away from him. He said,
"Abba, my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass away from me. Nevertheless, not my will but yours be done."
Jesus came to Gethsemane. This was a garden across the Kidron Valley, which is a mile-long ridge paralleling the eastern part of Jerusalem. This area would have been a well-known route for Jesus and his disciples, from the temple to the summit of the Mount of Olives and the ridge leading to Bethany. The name Gethsemane comes from a Hebrew word meaning oil press. This suggests that it was an olive grove in which an oil press was located. It was here that Jesus was pressed with the weight of the cup of suffering that he would have to endure to save us. In the garden, the Bible says,
An angel from heaven appeared to him, strengthening him. Being in agony, he prayed more earnestly. His sweat became like great drops of blood falling down on the ground. He came and found them sleeping, and said to Peter,
"Simon, are you sleeping? Couldn't you watch 1 hour? Watch and pray that you may not enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak."
Again, a second time he went away and prayed, saying,
"My Father, if this cup can't pass away from me unless I drink it, your desire be done."
He came again and found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy. He left them again, went away, and prayed a third time, saying the same words. Then he came to his disciples and said to them,
"Are you still sleeping and resting? Behold, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise, let's be going. Behold, he who betrays me is at hand."
As Jesus prayed in agony and suffering, knowing the cost that was about to come, he sweat as it were great drops of blood. There's a medical condition when the capillaries just beneath the skin burst and blood comes through the pores. Jesus was in agony, struggling even to the point of death. And he gets up and he wakes his disciples. In the distance, a mob is coming. They had swords and torches and spears. There were soldiers, temple servants, and others with them, as well as Judas, one of the 12 disciples. He came to Jesus and kissed him. He betrayed the Lord with a kiss for 30 pieces of silver.
When those who were around him saw what was about to happen, they said to him,
"Lord, shall we strike with the sword?"
Simon Peter therefore, having a sword, drew it, struck the high priest's servant, and cut off his right ear.
I want you to picture the scene. The swords, the torches, the tension in the air, as Jesus stepped into the middle of this situation, and he turned to Peter, and he said,
"Put your sword back into its place, for all those who take the sword will die by the sword. Or do you think that I couldn't ask my Father? And he would even now send me more than 12 legions of angels? How then would the scriptures be fulfilled that it must be so?"
And then he reached down and he took that man's bloody ear and he put it back on that man's head. And he was healed and he was totally fine.
Jesus answered them,
"Have you come out, as against a robber, with swords and clubs to seize me? I was daily with you in the temple teaching, and you didn't arrest me. But this is your hour, and the power of darkness. This is so that the scriptures might be fulfilled."
So the detachment, the commanding officer, and the officers of the Jews seized Jesus and bound him.
The disciples turned and they fled, and Jesus allowed this crowd to arrest him.